Amy, I have an itch and it is for a spicy dark romance and I need one bad.
I have the book for you. It is A Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorick. It was an instant New York Times bestseller. It was a huge indie hit on BookTok, and I think it is right up your alley.
It seriously has some of my favorite tropes, like shifters, vampires, witches. You know how I feel about vampires. There can never be enough. It has the best morally gray characters, fated mates, meddling gods, forced proximity, touch her and die. One bed, one horse, he falls first. Enemies with benefits.
I love enemies with benefits. Don't tell me your feelings at all. Just ravage me, please.
I need to read this immediately.
I love that there's even LGBTQ rep. The series overall features romantic relationships like MFM polyamory, MM, and FM. Give it all to me.
You know how I love to feel devastated by reading a book? A Reign of Shadows and Endings is it.
And if you're like Jack and I and you love special editions, there is a gorgeous deluxe version with stenciled edges, foil details, and full color character arc from Kensington Publishing.
It is, in fact, in my heart currently.
We're so excited to read it, and you can too. You can find A Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorick wherever books are sold in print and in ebook.
You can also find Melissa online at her website, melissakRorick.com, at Melissa_K_Rorick on Instagram, and at author Melissa K. Rorick on TikTok. That's ROEHRIC.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact that you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. They make it super simple. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with coverage options tailored to your choices. Plus, you'll see which discounts you may qualify for, like the online quote discount or savings for paying in full. In fact, 99% of Progressive Auto customers earn at least one discount. See if you could save when you switch to Progressive. You'll feel good about making a savvy choice. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little extra cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Expedia and Visit Scotland invite you to come step into centuries of history that await in Scotland. Castles steeped in legend walk along cobblestone streets. Come share the warmth of stories passed down through generations. This is a place with a past that is fully present today and all yours to explore. Plan your Scottish escape today at expedia.com/Visit Scotland.
Welcome to Academia Unlocked, a special series from BookTok for BookTok with Jack and Amy, where we take one classic work and explore it through 4 episodes, moving from understanding the text to deep analysis to cultural interpretation, and finally to what it means to you, our listeners.
This is Jack.
And I'm Amy.
Between us, we have over 13 years of academic literary training, bachelor's degrees in creative writing, as well as master's degrees. We built this series because we wanted to bring that depth into a space that actually feels like a conversation.
Each book gets 4 episodes, and they build on each other. We start with literary literacy, reading the work the way you would in a high school AP class, close and careful. Episode 2 is our advanced analysis, where we shift into a college-level seminar lens. Episode 3, we look at the book in media. That includes adaptations, cultural legacy, how it translates beyond the page, and more. And finally, in episode 4, we open it up entirely. Your interpretations, your readings, your relationship with the text.
Today, we begin our arc of The Color Purple by Alice Walker, winner of the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award in 1983. This is episode 1, Literary Literacy. We are reading this book the way your AP English teacher always wished you would, but honestly, probably wish that there was less cursing, because we can't help ourselves. But the goal is slow, close, and paying attention. That's what we're doing here. The first words of The Color Purple are a warning, not a dedication, not an epigraph, a command. Quote, "You better not never tell nobody but God. It'd kill your mammy." Before we know a single character's name, before we understand where we are or who is speaking, we are already being silenced, already being told that this story is too heavy, too shameful, too dangerous for the world to hold. At least that's what is being said, but thank goodness Alice Walker disagreed. She wrote this story. She disagreed with her own opening statement, but thank goodness Alice Walker believed, and thank goodness Alice Walker did not feel that way and decided to tell this amazing, incredible book with our protagonist, Celie. This book wrecked me, and it took me all of 5.2 seconds for me to text Amy and say, oh yeah, this deserves every single prize, and honestly, we should bring it back for more prizes because, dear God, it's incredible.
It is so good. I don't know why it took me so many years to read it. And I'm really glad that we chose it for our third book in this series.
I think it's one of those books where you kind of culturally know it. It's always been in the zeitgeist. Like, I've heard of it. I know the movie. You kind of have an idea of it. You know there's a Broadway musical on it, but it's not something, unfortunately, that I read before. But like you said, thank God we did. But there's a lot to be said.
There is a lot to be said. Before we dive in, I have a very brief blip of a memory as a child seeing some of the opening scenes of the movie because my parents were probably watching it. And I remember even at the time being so depressed by it that I was like, I don't know if I can handle this.
Yeah.
And it was a hard beginning because it's a very tragic beginning.
Yeah.
But God, the story is so worth it.
It really
is so worth following.
It really is.
So let's dive into the context of this novel. This is segment 2, where we talk about Alice Walker and the world of this novel. Now, Alice Walker was born in 1944 in Eatonton, assuming you pronounce that with all the T's. Otherwise, it might be Edendon.
If you're from
Georgia.
California.
If you're from California, Georgia. And she was the 8th child of sharecropper parents. She lost sight in one eye as a child, which I did not know. This experience, therefore, deepened her interiority and relationship to storytelling. She also attended Spelman College and Sarah Lawrence, where I did my first semester of college way back when.
One semester alumni.
Woo! She was also deeply involved in the civil rights movement. The Color Purple was published in 1982. It was, in fact, her third novel, which won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction and the National Book Award in 1983. She was the first Black woman to win the Pulitzer for fiction. Just winning a Pulitzer in general is an accomplishment. The fact that it took until 1983 for a Black woman to win it is something else.
Yeah.
Alice also coined the term womanist, aka a feminist, aka feminism rooted in the experiences of women of color, which I did not know.
Yeah. You never heard of the term womanist before?
No, I did not know
that she coined it. Same. Yeah. I didn't know that until researching, and I was like, my God, yay. If anyone hasn't heard of the term womanist, I will always remember young, foolish me at a party talking about like why we should all be like, feminism is important. We should all be feminists. And there was a Black woman at the party, and she said, I'm not a feminist. And I was like, how can you not be a feminist? And then she was like, because feminism was there to help white women, and meanwhile, all you white women left us behind. And she was like, I'm a womanist. And then I was like, humbled, and then went home, did my research, and I was like, well, somebody needs to shut the fuck up. And that person was me. And I learned.
All you can do is grow. Learn and grow.
Yeah. So I did not know Alice coined that. So more incredible praise to her. She's alive. Suddenly I got into my head. I'm like, can we interview her?
I think she's in her 80s.
Yes.
Now.
That doesn't stop someone from being interviewed by us.
I mean, in my grandmother's case, she couldn't even use a tablet. So I don't know. I don't have context for what people are capable of nowadays.
Girl can dream. Now, the historical setting of this novel is very, very important. It is almost like its own character because of how vital the setting is. The novel is set in rural Georgia, primarily between the 1910s and the 1940s. It takes over the course of several decades. And the Jim Crow South was in full effect. So there was a lot of legal segregation, a lot of racial terror, sharecropping, limited rights for Black Americans, and it's, slavery was illegal in everything but name. basically. It was very bad. Like when you start going into the history of Jim Crow and segregation and things aren't much better. This is a spiral, guys. Racism's bad. We're not going to end it here in this segment. But basically, though, another important aspect of this novel is the fact that it is a deeply patriarchal world. Women had almost no legal or economic autonomy.
Now, because of course, this is written by a Black woman, there is immediate controversy, and not because there should be, but because that's how, unfortunately, our society, especially in the 80s, reacts. Now, The Color Purple was deeply criticized by Black male writers for its depiction of Black men, because the Black men are very violent towards Black women in this story. It was also challenged and banned in multiple school districts for sexual content, language, and quote-unquote troubling ideas. It does also remain on the American Library Association's most frequently banned books list. I think that's a crime in and of itself.
Yep.
However, it is also celebrated as a revolutionary, healing text for Black women readers worldwide. One of the things that I loved about the foreword from Alice Walker before the start of the book, she says, quote, "I was writing about my people for the first time in a way that felt completely honest, and that honesty cost something."
That foreword also wrecked me. That's when I knew there was not going to be a single moment where I would have a dry eye.
Yeah. She talks about how this book is not about God. It's about finding your place in the world.
Yeah.
Finding your spirituality in your place in the world.
In nature, in your surroundings. Yeah.
It's super beautiful. If you've not read the foreword, you should read the foreword.
Thank God I didn't skip it. Why didn't I skip it? I think I was just like, I'm going into this like, Miss Alice, you tell me, I will listen to you.
Did you read the version that she narrated herself?
No. Wait, do we have the same one?
I listened to it through Libby. I listened to the version that Alice narrates herself.
I want to listen to that. Now I'm going to cry to that, aren't I?
Yeah.
No, whatever Miss Alice wants, I will do. So if she wants me, I will go and listen to her narrating it.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jack, going into this book, what did you think about it, if anything, other than knowing you would not get a dry eye? And maybe what surprised you most in the actual reading?
I was so unbelievably surprised and blown away by the structure of this book. The fact that it is all in letter format. There are no chapters. Even at least in the audiobook, I don't know how the book looks, but like in the audiobook, there's no like chapters per se. It's just kind of like sections. And that type of writing structure is called epistolary. The only reason, and I practiced saying that with Amy just now, which was deleted, but the only reason why I know it is because I heard that in church. And I was like, wait a minute, is that what this is? That word? Am I seeing it?
Epistle.
Epistle. Yeah. An epistolary novel is basically a novel told entirely through letters, diary entries, or written correspondence. Examples from this could be Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, Dracula, Bram Stoker, and even Bridget Jones' diary. Walker uses this form to give Celie a private, unmediated voice, and the letters are her inner world. And the way that it goes from talking to God and then the evolution of who she's addressing the letters to and the moments when she's writing these letters, like it means that you have to think quite a bit when you're reading this and having to really ask yourself, like, why is Celie writing this letter, like this particular letter? What is the thing that happened in this letter that is bringing her here to recite this letter? So I think for me, I was just very much taken, and I love it. I love it when a book like messes around with the concept of what a book is.
Yeah, and I think this one does it so well because partway through the novel, we go from Celie writing to God, like she's praying to God, which is very private. It's very confessional. And then all of a sudden we start getting letters from Nettie, who is Celie's sister, who is writing to Celie from Africa because Celie and Nettie haven't seen each other in a decade or more. In fact, these are letters that Celie never receives because her husband, Mr., hides them from her. That was a mind fuck for me of just like knowing she wasn't getting these.
Yeah.
Knowing the context of what I know and how much pain there must be on both sides for these sisters to not be able to communicate with one another.
I mean, and I'm not going to remember it perfectly, but even like the lines where when Nettie leaves and she said, nothing but death is going to stop me from writing you letters. And then the next sentence was, I didn't get any letters.
Mm-hmm.
She could have just left it there, and I was already rocked by it. And then once we started getting the Nettie letters, I was like, oh, we're going to keep going. Tell me about Nettie and her story and the fact that Mister's hiding them.
Yeah. When Seeley does discover that Nettie has been writing, that Mister has these letters, the form of the novel opens up in new ways with new voices, new perspectives. And there's this beautiful shift where Seeley shifts from writing to God and instead writing to Nettie, because God didn't do nothing for her at any point in time. So she wants to communicate to the person she wants to have listening to her story. And I think that's so beautiful.
It's really beautiful. So what is it that this form does to the novel? Like, what is the point of it? What do we take away from this format? It creates immediate, intense intimacy between the reader and Seeley. We are immediately in Seeley's consciousness. We are in her confession to God. The reader becomes a confidant that Seeley has been forbidden to ever have with anyone else. And I understood some of this, but like again, in research for this, but Seeley's language and her dialect, the syntax, it does not change in the novel. And apparently, because we listened to it, we didn't read it, but there's even like misspellings too throughout.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah. And it's not corrected and it's not translated, right? It is trusted. One of the first line, I think this is the first line, but it's the opening letter is from Seeley, quote, "Dear God, I am 14 years old. I have always been a good girl. Maybe you can give me a sign letting me know what is happening to me." And then I was like,
yeah. What I loved about the language, it's so genuine, and that makes it so much rawer because it truly is Seeley's voice. I noticed that the longer I listened, the easier it was for me to understand. In spite of the grammatical errors, right? Because this is not a dialect I'm very familiar with. The more I listened, the more I was like, oh, no, this is easy listening to me now. Like, I
You just have to get your ear tuned to it. The narrator did an incredible job with this. I was thinking about it when I saw online that the spelling was changed to fit the dialect. No one can ever do this to a Southern California accent, right? Because then it would be spelled, water would be spelled with W-A-D-E-R.
Yeah.
Mountain. Party. No.
Yeah.
No. It wouldn't work. What Walker is doing with this form is radical. The dominant literary tradition has always decided whose voice is literary, right? Like it's wanting to put your best literary foot forward, essentially. Whose inner life is, the narrator's inner life is complex. It's worth reading. Like that's what we've all been taught, right? Even when you think about like Dracula, it's a letter format, but it's so flowery, right? Like, and you're like, oh, like this, of course we want to be in this person's mind. And with Seeley, it's just so real. It's so raw. It's vulnerable. She writes without punctuation in her early letters. She misspells words. And the beauty of it is that the novel treats every single word, every single mispronunciation, misspelling as literature because it is literature. But the format itself is an argument. It is an argument saying like, this is literature and it will be respected as thus. And that is something we're going to come back to future episodes. But for right now, because this is literacy, so we're talking basics here. We interrupt our own genius for a quick message. Struggling to find the right metabolic wellness support, even when you're doing everything right, has been one of the most frustrating things for me in my health journey.
I've tried other metabolic wellness support providers, and I often feel rejected rather than supported by the process.
That's because Brello is focused on long-term health, longevity, and performance, not quick fixes.
Brello is designed for people who want a more sustainable approach to their metabolic wellness support. Their support helps you focus on habits, education, and structure alongside provider oversight.
Getting my GLP-1 through Brello has been so easy. They make it so effortless, and they provide all the support I need through their app.
Their app is one of a kind in my book because it allows you to track progress, manage reminders, and stay on top of renewals. And if you're like me, managing the renewals is the hardest part.
Everything is managed online, making it easier to stay consistent over time, and medications are delivered to your door. They're so transparent with their pricing with one flat monthly cost. Go to BrelloHealth.com to see if you qualify and explore their GLP-1 plans, starting at $133 per month for your first 3 months. plus access to their app, community, and wellness classes. That's BRELLO health.com.
Any information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. All patients must consult with a healthcare provider prior to the prescription or dispensing of any medication, which will be done only pursuant to a valid prescription. Compounded drug products are not FDA approved, and the FDA does not evaluate their safety, effectiveness, or quality. Patients are encouraged to discuss the risks, benefits, and appropriateness of any medications, including compounded products, with their healthcare provider before use.
Let's talk about what's actually happening in the book. We're going to kind of power through this segment.
All right, so we are going to give a quick plot overview about what actually happens. As Jack said earlier, Walker, Alice, doesn't actually use chapter numbers. There's only letter breaks. So we're going to track the story through rough arcs. So we're going to talk about arc 1, which is Celie's world before. These are the early letters. Celie's 14. She lives in rural Georgia, and she is being sexually assaulted repeatedly by the man she calls Pa. Much later in the novel, we learn this is her stepfather, Alfonso, but in the beginning, we believe it is her actual biological father. We don't know any better. Celie has 2 children by Pa, who are both taken away at birth. She believes they were killed because that's what she's,
that's what
what else
told.
would he do?
Yeah.
That's what she was told. Also, later on, we discover they're alive. We don't know that for a long time. We also learn that Celie's mother is ill and dying, and Celie has essentially become the family's household and sexual servant.
This is like all within the first
couple pages.
Yeah, there's no easing you into it. I mean, because why would you, when you're writing a letter to God asking for help, right? Like you don't do like a little prelude to this. And it was we're just starting here. We are in it.
The one anchor Celie has is her sister Nettie, who Celie fiercely loves and protects to the extent that when Pa wants to go after Nettie, Celie gives her body over instead.
Mm-hmm. Now we're going to go into arc 2, and that is marriage to Mr., who we find out his name is Albert. Alfonso arranges for Celie to marry a man she only knows as Mr., who is Albert, and Celie is basically sold off to be his wife. He actually comes in for her sister, and it ends up being Celie. And Mr. is cruel, he is controlling, and he is in love with another woman, Shug Avery. Celie endures years of abuse, both physical, emotional, and sexual, in Mr.'s household, and even his kids aren't great to her either. And also, she was like, I don't love them and they don't love me. I just treat them all right. I was like, yes. Nettie comes to live with them very briefly, but Mr., like we were saying, wants Nettie, and when she refuses him, he kicks her out, and that's how the sisters are separated. I'm going to bring in a quote. He beat me today because he say I winked at a boy in church. I may have got something in my eye, but I didn't wink. I don't even look at men's. Just as an example of how horrible and abusive this guy is.
Yeah. So you don't even like her, yet you're possessive. And at some point, it's just like he's taking out his anger at the world on Celie for no reason.
I think he even says it when he tries to explain to his son why you have to beat your wife. And he was like, well, it's just what you do.
Right.
It's like, what else would you do?
Yep. All right. Then moving into arc 3 is Shug Avery. And Shug Avery arrives. She's a famous blues singer. And Shug is Mr.'s great love that he didn't get to keep. She is beautiful and unapologetically free. Now, at first, Celie expects to hate her because this is Mr.'s woman and Mr.'s bringing Shug home. Shug is sick. And so Mr.'s like, I'm going to take care of her. You're going to take care of her. I don't care if you're my wife. Shug isn't nice at first, but she actually becomes one of the most transformative relationships in Celie's life. And ultimately, through their relationship, Shug teaches Celie not only about her female body, but also what it means to have pleasure, and helps Celie understand she has a right to exist. And their relationship, therefore, evolves from friendship to romantic and ultimately to very deeply rooted in love. And what's beautiful about Shug, and I love Shug's character, is that she's the first person who looks at Celie and sees that Celie is worth loving. And nobody prior to that really had done that for Celie.
Again, I didn't realize how little, I didn't know much about this book, but until you start reading it, you're like, oh, I really knew nothing. Because all of a sudden I was like, this is queer. This is a queer book. This is amazing.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
Yeah. I mean, already I feel like this was so, revolutionary and pushing the boundaries and, saying things that needed to be said in 1983. And then you add the queer element to it. And I was like, oh my God, it's Alice.
So I've always wondered, having never read this book, watched the movie before, I always wondered why it was called The Color Purple. And I love that it comes from Shug and her philosophy. Quote, I think it pisses God off if you walk by the color purple in a field somewhere and don't notice it. Like, her whole thing is like, isn't it amazing that the color purple is a natural occurrence in the world?
Yeah.
Like, that is beautiful. When she said that for the first time, I was like, yeah, you're right.
That's cool.
It is my favorite color.
The color purple is beautiful. You're right. Yeah. We also have Sophia and Harpo. Harpo is Mr.'s son, and Sophia is the woman that he loves and eventually marries. I love Sophia. She is physically strong, mentally and emotionally strong. She is defiant and she is free. Everything that Seeley is not initially when Seeley meets Sophia. Sophia refuses to be beaten. In fact, she fights back and she leaves when she needs to. Sophia's arc takes, unfortunately, a devastating turn when she strikes back at the white mayor's wife and she is imprisoned and is then sentenced to work as their maid. It was one of those things where I was like, it sounds so ridiculous. Your sentence is to be their maid, but I also knew I don't need to look this up to know that Alice is right, that this 100% probably did happen. It was just another moment of like, oh God, humanity failing once again. And Sophia's story is one of the novel's most devastating arguments about the intersection of race and gender. Quote, all my life I had to fight. I had to fight my daddy. I had to fight my brothers. I had to fight my cousins and my uncles. A girl child ain't safe in a family of men, but I never thought I'd have to fight in my own house. Oh,
it's one of the worst parts of this book is when Mr. convinces Harpo, like, if you want to have a happy life, you have to beat your wife and beat her into submission.
Well, it goes into arguably probably one of Seeley's worst moments in her life is when Harpo turns to her and says, do I need to do that? Do I need to beat her? And because Seeley is jealous of Sophia, and she says it, that she is jealous of Sophia, she says, yeah, you do. You do need to beat her. And so when Sophia talks about not having to fight in her own house, it's more than just not having to fight her husband, but now she's having to fight Seeley, another woman in her house who is against her.
Yeah, not physically.
Yeah.
But metaphysically, I guess? I don't know how I would describe that.
The wars be raging, but Seeley does apologize for that and reflects heavily on it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, though, because of how badly it really does ruin Sophia's life, her relationship with her children, her ability to be a free person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awful. We then get into Arc 5, which is Nettie's letters and Africa. And Seeley discovers Nettie's hidden letters because of Shug. And what she discovers is that there's been years of correspondence that Mr., her husband, has been hiding away. Nettie, we learn, goes to Africa as a missionary with the Reverend Samuel and his wife, Corrine, which in a crazy turn of events, because this is how life works sometimes, Samuel and Corrine adopted 2 children who they did not know, but who we learn are Olivia and Adam, who are Seeley's children that she gave birth to that she thought were killed. Nettie's letters reveal a much larger world. They reveal African colonialism, missionary work, and quite frankly, the global dimensions of Black life, what it means to be Black in New York, in England, as missionaries, as outsiders to Africa, and, you know, their heritage and the people that their ancestors came from, essentially.
Even the story with Nettie, Samuel, and
Corrine,
thank you. The village that they're in, you don't get tons of time in there, but there is so much happening between, you know, the dynamics within the village and then the way that they didn't care, or like it showed within this book that the villagers were not very sympathetic to the slaves who were taken. And then you kind of find out that a lot of the villagers in Africa like helped and contributed to some some of the slave trade, which I did know about. And then you find out how it's being gentrified. That's not the right word. The village ends up being cleared out because of like new factories coming in. And it's like you don't get tons of screen time being reading time in that village, but just the sheer amount of things that happen there.
Yeah. And it doesn't glorify the culture that they have, right? Because at first Nettie's like, oh, it's so great to like be reacquainted with the culture that is here. But at the same time, they still disfigure women. And like, it's not.
They don't like that the girls are going to school.
Right. It's like all of it's bad.
Yeah.
Both what the white colonizers are doing and some of the practices and treatment of women.
Yep.
And finally, arc 6, we have Celie's liberation. Celie finally speaks her rage to Mr. in one of the most celebrated scenes in American literature. It was very powerful for me. It felt very magical at the time, too, when I was reading it. She leaves with Shug. She inherits her stepfather's house and land because he dies. And abysmally, it was always hers. She just never knew because that's what men do to her. She starts a business with sewing. She makes pants. And it's a reclamation of her creativity and what it means to labor, but in a way that is joyous and creative and is part of her identity. And then in the closing movement of the novel, Nettie returns from Africa. And this is after Celie believes that Nettie and her family have been killed. By the way, because of the war. But Nettie returns from Africa with Adam and Olivia, and the family is brought back together.
And that's when I started hiccup crying. Like, I don't get hiccups, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, there's one quote that we have, and it's like, it's an ongoing quote that Celie says throughout the book, and there's different variations on it. And she says it again towards the end of the book. And I think it's worth saying here. Quote, "I'm poor, I'm black, I may be ugly and can't cook. A voice says to everything listening, but I'm here." Celie's here.
And listening to Alice Walker say that, I love listening to her read because you can tell how she reads it is how she meant for it to be read. And I love it.
I'm taking a deep breath and we're going to take a sip because the ugly crying that I was doing in this moment was just like, because Celie just had such a hard life and she just got reunited with her sister and her kids. And then her sister ends up becoming her kid's stepmom.
Which is beautiful in its own way.
It is gorgeous. You know, reading novels, especially novels written by Black authors with the Black experience, particularly in America, discussing like racism. It is something that, you know, is very important. And, you know, quoting things is very important. I always feel hesitant because there's some things that I will never say, even if the quote has it, like the N-word. And I remember one time in high school, we were reading a book and I can't remember what it was. I think it was Huckleberry Finn. So it wasn't even a Black author with a Black experience, right? But she would have us like stand up in class and read it out loud. And she was like, this is part of the book. This is respecting the literature and you have to say the word. Thank God. I mean, I also am horrible at reading and saying things out loud. Ironically enough, that's what I do now. So she never really called on me, but I had to hear and listen to students say the N-word and was like forced to say it because she was like, well, you have to respect the literature. And so when you hear me stumble on quotes, it's me saying, am I comfortable? I respect the literature, but I will not say words that are not my history or anything to say.
Yeah, it's so interesting you bring that up because I work in a university and I have experiences of Black professors saying such words in legal cases or in literature. And it's not okay with the Black students in the room. Like, not everybody feels the same. I don't think it's about respecting the literature. I think it's about respecting the people whose identity is being spoken about and what do they want.
Yeah.
And if they don't want that word in your mouth, don't say it.
Not going to be said here. And you know what? It's one of those like, I never said it drunk, never said it sober.
Nope.
You know, it's always like, you know, when you see the people online, you know, influencers, and then they're like, I was drunk, I didn't mean it. Or I was like young and I didn't know. And it's like, I've been wasted and I have not said any bad words or assaulted anyone. So, you know,
look at that.
Check. It's amazing what you can do. All right. So yeah, all that to say is like, if you hear me stumbling over quotes, it's me being like, wait, do I feel comfortable reading this? Hey, Jack, didn't you guys take the notes yourself? Aren't you comfortable with what you put on here? Yes. Okay. Did I do this a long time ago and I forgot? Yeah. And should I trust past me? Yes.
Nah, I don't trust past me.
I barely trust in me.
Grab a snack, stretch your legs, and we'll be right back. When I moved in with my partner, is when I realized how much effort she puts into her skincare. She spends so much time and money just on what she puts on her skin. But the one thing she doesn't invest in is our bedding.
Well, that's because you're now investing in it with Boll and Branch.
From their organic cotton sheets to their breathable pillows and comforters, Boll and Branch makes their bedding with ultra clean materials that are gentle on the skin and free from harsh chemicals.
Boll and Branch really feels like my first grown-up sheets, and you can really feel the difference with their signature sheet sets. Remember, these sheets are touching you for up to 8 hours every single night. You're going to want to have the best sheets possible. Have you noticed that the pockets of the fitted sheets are perfect for forming around the mattress?
This is the first set of sheets that I haven't had to help my partner put them on the bed because the pockets are too small. They are so easy to get on the bed.
These are honestly the first pair of sheets that I have that I don't wake up with my sheets halfway wrapped around me. They are durable, they are soft, and the longer you use them, the softer they become.
Upgrade your sleep with Boll and Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/BookTok with code BookTalk, BookTalk.
That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/BookTalk, and use code BookTalk to unlock 15% off. Exclusions apply. So let's go into our next segment, which is a character study. We're going to cover some of the major characters. Obviously, Celie, our narrator, she is 14 when the novel opens up. And by the time the novel ends, she is roughly in her 40s. And you really can see that the story begins with her as a girl who's been told that she is nothing, that she is ugly and she is stupid and unworthy. And you can so hear the defeat in her words and her existence just with the letters that she writes to God. Her arc is one of the most compelling transformations, I believe, in American fiction. And honestly, Pulitzer Prize would agree. And it goes from silence to speech, from endurance to joy. There is a before, there is an after. And it is her journey that she had to fight and grow and learn and strive for. And she does it. And Celie's language is the novel's language. It is unpolished. It is direct. It is honest. And the novel is Celie in the most pure sense, in a way that I cannot even list a handful of books that I could say the same thing about them, even with Nettie's point of view.
Yeah, agreed. Then we have Shug Avery, who plays a huge role in this novel, and I was so glad that she was there for more than just a blip. She's a blues singer, she's Mister's great love, and probably the most liberated figure in the novel, like surprisingly liberated for the 1920s, 30s, 40s. She is unapologetically sensual. She's also very unorthodox in her spirituality because she does believe in God.
Yeah.
She also believes God believes in your pleasure and your happiness. So, fuck what the church says.
I agree.
And I agree. And she's very radical in her freedom and living a very free life. Her relationship with Celie is the emotional spine of the novel. She's really the person upon whom Celie's emotional journey is based, both romantic, maternal, platonic, transformative, and her theology, which we kind of mentioned before. God is in the color purple. It's in a field. It's in beauty. And that concept in and of itself reshapes Celie's relationship to what is God, what is divine. And quite frankly, ever since I heard Shug talk about the color purple, I already marvel at the color purple. I marvel at it even more anytime I see it in nature.
Yeah. I mean, but everything that makes Shug good and amazing and incredible is also what ends up hurting Celie. I mean, Shug can't stay in one place, right? She needs to go on another hurrah. She goes and starts seeing the younger guy and was like, hey, Celie, I need this. I need to have one more go. And it is like, everything that makes her incredible is also the same thing that has ultimately leads to hurting Celie too, which again makes a character fantastic.
Yeah.
We also have Nettie, who, as we mentioned, is Celie's younger sister, the person who Celie loves most in the world. She escapes Alfonso's household and then becomes a missionary in Africa. Her letters provide the novel's counter-narrative and Celie's intimate interior versus the wider world. So you have Celie, who is very much in this house. Her world is limited to this home. And then you have Nettie, who is an absolute counter to that, who is in Africa, right? So wider world, narrow world. And her return at the novel's end is, like we were saying, the emotional climax, and it is a restored wholeness. You have the wider world restoring and reuniting with the inner world.
Mm-hmm. Then there's Mr., who, as we learn later, his name is Albert. He is Celie's husband because he bought her, essentially. He's cruel, controlling, and defined only by his pining love for Shug because he never took the step to claim her. Therefore, he must always want her. It's easy to categorize him as a monster. However, as you come to learn more about him, Mr. is also a man shaped by the same patriarchal violence that has shaped Celie, that has shaped everybody around him. And I was really, really impressed with how in the last arc of the book, even Mr. goes through a transformation. And because of that transformation and because of Celie's transformation, they're somehow, able to work out mutual understanding and respect and peace in its own way. And what I love about that is that Alice Walker doesn't let him become the only villain or only be a villain.
Mm-hmm.
And recognizes that humans are complex.
Yeah.
That they can be ugly, but they can change. And, I think he is a great example of what makes this novel so complicated, but also great.
Sometimes there would be moments with Albert that I just was like, if he had known there was another option of treating women, would he have done that instead? And this isn't giving excuses or reasonings or, whatever you want to, justifications, but it's not like Celie's stepfather, Alfonso, who is evil. He was assaulting a child. This was more to do with the fact that he almost didn't have an answer sometimes of like, why would he do the things he does? And him and Celie kind of bond when Shug leaves Celie. Like they kind of have this moment of like, that sucks. And it's like, would he have been a different man under different circumstances? Would he have been this way if the patriarchy wasn't set in place?
Right. All of his early behaviors are learned and they're learned from somewhere, probably his own father, right?
Yeah.
And if his own father had been different, would he have also been different?
Yeah, I had a thought, and it was never confirmed in the book, so you'll have to tell me. But I always thought that the reason why Celie and Mr. never had a child was probably because she had kids so young and wasn't able to have kids again.
I feel like she may have mentioned something about a sponge. I think she went in with the intent of never getting pregnant.
Okay.
And would do anything to sabotage the option of getting pregnant.
Gotcha. Thank you. You confirmed the other thing for me. Thank you. Counter to Mr. Albert is his son, Harpo, who is an example of like behaviors are taught. His dad says you have to hurt your wife. You have to beat her to get her under control. And he is also a character who can learn to not and to stop doing that if he wants to have joy. He eventually becomes a keeper of a juke joint, a small space for music.
Yeah, like in Sinners.
Yeah, like in Sinners. Like it's like a bar, but in like out back, like in someone's back house type thing.
In a barn.
In a barn.
Or like a made-over house.
Yeah.
Then there is Squeak, also known as Mary Agnes. Say her name, please.
Yeah.
Who is Harpo's girlfriend after Sophia leaves. Sophia leaves Harpo to go live with her family. Squeak / Mary Agnes becomes Harpo's girlfriend. She is initially timid and overlooked. Initially Sophia and Squeak or Mary Agnes do not get along, but there becomes this solidarity between them when Sophia is put in jail because she's a Black woman. She's being mistreated. So Mary Agnes steps up in an attempt to help free Sophia and even endures sexual assault, which is awful. But it also ignites Mary Agnes into action and gives her a voice. And then she goes off and does her own thing. She becomes a singer. She leaves Harpo and she has this amazing journey on her own.
And it's so embodied in this, like, in the moment where she goes, say my name. Like, you will, my name is Mary Agnes. You will call me by my name.
Yeah.
It's one of those, like, she reclaims her name in the most literal sense, and it's incredible.
Yeah. So, of all the characters, Jack, who maybe surprised you the most? And was there anyone you found yourself forgiving that you didn't expect to forgive?
Albert. No, did I forgive? Forgive is too generous of a
strong
term.
word.
I know. It's a generous term. I don't know if I forgave him. But Albert and Harpo especially shows me how men are victim to the patriarchy as well. Harpo lost an incredible woman and someone that he loves. All the way to the very end, he loves her. And they even get back together at one point. But he gave up what could have been a very incredible, stable marriage, for as far as we know, to do what he is literally taught to do. And I found that to be really interesting. And I'm just like, anytime a book can make me, I don't want to say I feel bad for men. Let's not get carried away here, but, sympathetic and understanding. Like, it was just done in a way that it does not excuse them. It does not take blame away from them, but it does give you an insight. And it did allow me to not want them dead the way that I wanted Celia's stepdad dead.
Yeah. I think one of the characters that really struck me the most was Sophia, because I think, as a white passing woman in the modern age, it's easy for me to be like, fight back, be stronger, right? These things, these privileges that I enjoy as a woman of this time period. But watching Sophia's story and identifying with her and then seeing all the tragedy that becomes her and is her story, 11 years as a maid, sleeping under the stairs or, in the mayor's home because the mayor's wife was
like, you need to work for me. And she goes, no, I don't.
She said, no, I don't want to work for you.
Yeah.
And seeing how beaten down she gets, she's disfigured, she's disabled, she's taken away from her family. And then the mayor's wife's daughter identifies more with Sophia and won't leave her alone and won't respect her boundaries after she is free again. Watching Sophia's story makes you understand, or at least made me understand and respect more why women don't speak out.
Yeah.
Because they see women like Sophia beat down.
Yep.
Women who they might admire or envy be so poorly treated, even more poorly treated than the rest of them.
Yeah.
And I really hurt for Sophia, but it made me understand Celie so much more.
Fighting back, being able to fight back is such a privilege.
Yeah.
And we have all these like scenarios of if something happens, I'm going to go and say X, Y, and Z. I play in my head as a modern white woman in the 21st century, right? It's such a different place and mentality to have. Well, I would just do X, Y, and Z and I would fight back. And it's just not the case. It's not the reality. Sophia is someone that we root for. And every single reason why we root for her are all of the reasons that ends up hurting her.
Yeah. Which, it still, is so heavy on my heart every time I think about it.
Yeah. And it's been a few weeks since we've read this. So. Hold your hot takes. We'll be right back. Amy, we were just in New York for BookCon, and did you notice that all of the New York girlies were wearing Quince?
You're so right. They were stylish, street appropriate, but also business casual.
It's amazing how I was spotting some of Quince's staple pieces on the street. I can always spot one of their Mongolian cashmeres from a mile away because it's always so soft and so nice. Quince really spends time on making sure they give you the best quality clothing they can with premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra soft denim.
Their styles make getting dressed simpler. They make me feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together with tops that start at just $30. You can't beat that for work.
Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup.
Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/BookTok for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada, too.
That's QUINCE.com/BookTok, BookTalk, for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/BookTok. This show is sponsored by Liquid IV.
When I think of spring break, I think of Jack and I senior year Las Vegas. You know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but what doesn't stay in Vegas is the hydration our body needs no matter what.
If there's anything that I needed from that trip, it's Liquid IV. And now that I'm older, I really need Liquid IV after going out. I drink Liquid IV's sugar-free hydration multiplier all the time. I'm not even exaggerating.
Liquid IV's hydration multiplier hydrates me better than water alone.
If you're going to Coachella or any music festival, this is the perfect thing to put in your purse because only one stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates faster than water alone. It's powered by LIV, Hydroscience, and an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration.
Compared to water, Liquid IV delivers longer lasting hydration and retains hydration for up to 4 hours. It's backed by a scientific advisory board with world-renowned researchers to conduct clinical research trials.
And for our vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free girlies, this is perfect for you.
It's always non-GMO and has delicious sugar-free options like mandarin orange, rainbow sherbet, my favorite, mango pineapple, and more.
Soak up unforgettable memories with on-the-go hydration from Liquid IV. Tear poor, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first purchase with code BookTok at checkout.
That's 20% off your first purchase with code BookTalk, BookTalk, at liquidiv.com.
But let's go into our next segment, which is going to discuss the surface level themes. Now, this is not wrong just because we're calling them surface. I don't want anyone to think that we are calling these shallow themes or anything of the sort. This is just more of something that I think we can all catch on to and you would discuss in high school AP English class. We will go deeper in episode 2 and you'll be able to see what we mean when we go into more deeper themes. But again, just because it's surface doesn't mean it's bad. I think sometimes the term surface gets a bad rep.
It assumes shallow.
Yeah. When sometimes I like things that are surface level, like the water levels.
I was going to say, I like a shallow pool.
I love a shallow pool. So one of the themes that we see immediately is essentially voice and silence. The novel opens with a command to silence, to tell nobody but God. And then the act of writing the letters itself is an act of resistance, right? Celie creates a witness for herself. She is writing these letters. She is defying her own command, right? Her voice and just the voice of the narrator and the novel itself accumulates over the course of the novel. Celie speaks to Mr., to herself, to Nettie, eventually to the world. Like she starts to actually talk back to these characters in talk back or write. Again, her talking back to the Mr. felt so good. And then you have an example like Squeak, who claims her name. You have Sophia, who refuses to apologize. Nettie, who's writing letters that may never arrive. The novel is absolutely saturated with the politics of who gets to speak, who is allowed to have a voice here, and continuously, it's always the women, to which I respect.
Yeah, I do too. I love that 2 of the Black women in this novel are singers.
Yeah.
They get paid to use their voice.
Yep.
Like, that is poetic in and of itself.
I didn't even think of that, but you're right.
Another theme that this book explores, we've alluded to before, is the divine. What is God? What is the divine? Fun is not the word I want to use, but one of the themes that I really appreciated about this was how Celie's concept of God is a white man, an old white bearded, guy in the Bible, in the white Bible that she's given, that Nettie also interrogates in her own letters, that we were led to believe this because that's what the white Bible told us to believe.
Yeah.
This is the same God that she writes to in the beginning who does nothing to protect her. Shug, on the other hand, offers a different theology that God's not a person. God isn't it. God is everything. God is the color purple, the wind, and what it means to feel alive. And therefore, Celie's spiritual transformation runs parallel to her psychological one and to her narrative style as well. And if you don't remember what I'm referring to, in one of Celie's letters, she says, quote, "Here's the thing, says Shug, the thing I believe. God is inside you and inside everybody else. You come into the world with God, but only them that search for it inside find it."
And the next theme that we will explore is love and all its forms. It's a theme that's almost surprising when you think about where the story even starts. It is the most hopeless Celie is. I mean, not she, arguably there's even more hopeless moments for her, but it's one of the darkest times. She's so young. She has been beaten down. And yet this book is about love in every form. You have romantic love between Celie and Shug. And then, I mean, even Shug and Mr. Like, Mr. sucks and he's obsessed with Shug, but there is love there. And then you have Harpo and Sophia. You have one of the best loves in this story, and that's sisterly love between Celie and Nettie. Like we said, it's the emotional spine of the entire novel. And then you have the chosen family in this novel, which becomes the community that Celie builds. And the most important love that this novel explores is self-love, which is the last thing, it's the hardest thing, and it's the whole point of this book is the self-love that Celie develops and discovers.
It is, her journey to self-love is so amazing. What I think I actually enjoyed more, and I hesitate to say that, but I think one of the things that was easier for me to see earlier was, and I want to go back to this idea of community, like Sophia and Squeak hate each other, but they take care of each other's children. They look after their man. They look after everybody associated with them. And it's, Sophia goes back to her sisters. Her brothers stand up for her.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated social dynamic amongst all these intermingling families and individuals.
Yep.
There's so much love and community and protection in those really complex relationships that I really, really appreciated about this story.
Yeah.
On that lovely note, another theme we have is violence, but not just violence. It's about how it's inherited. And yes, physical violence is everywhere in this novel. It is a tough pill to swallow. But what Walker does so well is show how it is systemic. It is not just an individual that causes it. It is a system that causes this violence. With Albert, with Harpo, we see how men who abuse women oftentimes are abused themselves. And they are shaped by the violent structures they live in and they grow up in. Sophia herself is imprisoned not for violence, but because she chooses to have dignity. And, society is probably the most dangerous opponent of dignity in this case. It doesn't mean that the novel excuses violence, but what it does is it interrogates where does violence come from and how that understanding influences our understanding of other people.
What I find to be very powerful about the book is, one of the things that you mentioned is how society, the state itself is one of the most dangerous characters in this book. And, we have examples of the white mayor and his wife, and we have examples of just how horrible the white community is to the Black community, but it's not necessarily one of the predominant in-your-face storylines. It's in the background, and yet it shapes everything. And the terror, the way that this community isn't allowed to move beyond their community. And it's very interesting where you don't need to have white society be brought in your face to have it still be the threat in the background.
Yeah, because we know our history. We know it's a threat, right?
Yeah. But the threat's still there. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
And the characters don't necessarily say it, throughout, but we as the reader can infer it.
Right. Well, and the other part of it is it's there, and we know it's there is because the Black women have nowhere to run to that is safe.
Yeah.
They have no one that will protect them.
Yep.
Not even themselves sometimes, right?
Yep.
And that's a moral failing of society.
Yeah. And it goes into the last theme that we'll discuss for now, and that is race, gender, and intersectionality. And that is the more AP level framing, if you would like to put it as such. And basically, it's the Black women in this novel face compounded oppression, right? They face racism from white society and patriarchy within their own community. Like Amy was saying, the fact that they don't have anyone to go to for help shows just how unbelievably racist and isolating and segregated this community is. Sophia's imprisonment arc makes this very explicit. You know, we were saying that like it's not in your face. Like her arc, it is in your face. But when I say it's not in your face, I'm saying like you don't have like a specific one male white character that comes in and out throughout and they're like, oh, that's Officer Jed. You know what I mean? It's still about Sophia and her arc. It is very much there to discuss, and that she is being punished for talking back to a white woman. And Walker does not let either racism or sexism be the main villain. It all works together.
And I felt that so deep in my core, in my like soul.
I was about to say, like, you worked out today. Yeah, like
I did work out today. I felt that so deep in my soul of how, you know, Jack, you and me, we mostly probably encounter misogyny.
Yeah.
But the women of Alice Walker's book and women of color whose experience we have not had experience both racism and sexism, both racism and misogyny. And those two things working in tandem work to keep people down and just make them feel worthless. And we see that in Celie's story.
What's so hard about all of this is that it still goes on today. You know, like whenever we talk about it in the podcast with other episodes, we will always say like, oh yeah, white women or like women are, you know, face X, Y, and Z. And then we have to pause and say, which is even worse for women of color. Like, you know, white women face hardship to a point. That there will always be that point because racism is working, unfortunately, in your favor. And any woman of color is fighting uphill against these two things, and sometimes within your own community. And it's very hard. For anyone who may not know us, Amy is half Chinese and I am half Chilean, and I am an extremely white looking Chilean. But like, boy golly, when I go down to Chile, it is always like, it's very clear colorism is happening.
And up until recently, you also had blonde hair. So
give me a couple washes, it'll come back to being blonde. Not natural. Not natural.
No, not at all.
So if you read The Color Purple in high school, maybe it moved you, maybe it disturbed you, and maybe it sat with you in a particular way that books do when they feel like they were written for you, even if you couldn't explain it. I know for me, who did not read this for the first time until this year, this is absolutely going to sit with me. This book wasn't written for me in my experience, but it spoke to me in a way that I'm going to listen and sit with it and feel it whenever I think about fantastic and wonderful books and things that we see in society even today. And hopefully what we've done today in this episode is really discuss the foundation. We know who Celie is. We know what she had to survive. We know what she loved and who she loved and what she lost and what she had to build. We looked at the letters that she wrote. We looked at something, technically the whole book is the letter that she wrote, but we start to understand why Walker chose that form. Again, it's to make things more intimate, there's no escaping Celie's reality when you are with her writing to God. But here's what we would like you to sit with before next week and we go into episode 2. Celie is not a passive character. She never was. I think sometimes she thinks that she is. We know for a fact she thinks that she is. And the stillness in her early letters, the way that she endures, that's not her being passive at all. That is the deepest kind of intelligence, of drive, of survival. Like when you have to survive like that, that's not being passive. Celie is watching. She is learning. She is storing that information. She is learning how to survive. And the transformation that we see in her, it's not sudden. It takes over the course of several decades, but it's also in many ways inevitable as you read her story.
Now, what we're hoping for in episode 2 is we're going to dive into that college literature major course seminar situation. We're going to talk more about the epistemological criticism. We talked about this in Pride and Prejudice. It's still a hard word for us, which is how the novel interrogates what it means to have knowledge, what it means to know, who gets to know things, how knowledge is transmitted, suppressed, and then reclaimed. We're going to look at Walker's use of dialect as a literary and political choice, and we're going to talk about the womanist framework that she built and why it's so enduring. Of course, then, we hope We're going to help you see this book in a whole new light. And if you've never read it before, convince you that you need to go read it.
Yep.
Thank you for being here with us for Academia Unlocked. If nothing else, we hope you branch out into the books that have intimidated you. The Color Purple was always one of those that have intimidated me.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot wait to watch the movie, as harrowing as that's going to be.
There's a musical.
I know. I'm like, I want to see the musical. I actually think it's going to be in LA soon.
Oh, is it?
Or we may have just missed it. I need to double check.
Okay. I'm going to find it online is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. I cannot wait to see how this is explored because it is so powerful. Ironically, I had acupuncture last night and my acupuncturist decided to tell me a story about Oprah and Oprah's story about how she got the part as Celie in The Color Purple.
Dude, your acupuncturist scares me sometimes.
Always on a different wavelength.
Truly. I wish she was in network for me. I'm looking forward to it. It's like Whoopi Goldberg is in it. And I think that was around the same time as Sister Act. Sister Act was a very important movie for me. Like, I
love that movie so much.
That movie raised me. That movie was my babysitter.
Sister Act 2 was mine.
Sister Act 1 and 2. Yeah. Like that was, who was your babysitter? Who was your nanny? Sister Act. Put that on.
Whoopi Goldberg.
4 hours of like, don't worry about Jack. She's going to be over there not moving. She's just going to be singing. We should watch that.
That would be a good weekend activity.
It will be. Sometimes people listen having not read the book, and I hope this inspires you too. You've got a week until our next episode.
I think it's okay if you listen to episode 2 and then go dive in, especially with how tragic some of the history is for Celie. I think knowing some of the themes and that there's hope on the other side, which I did not know to expect, by the way.
Yeah.
Helps you get through it. For sure.
I started it and then I had like drafted up a thing of like, because again, you guys, like, think we're doing this completely on our own. We're looking for online syllabus. We're looking at like, what people have also discussed because that's literature. It's all being regurgitated. But I think I said something when I started reading it and then I was like, oh, I went through and looked at some of the syllabus notes that I had like pulled aside. That really helped, like just to keep an eye out. Otherwise, I was just going to be drowning in my own sadness and sorrow and then being like, but this is also beautiful and not consuming it the way that we need to consume for this specifically. So yeah, good point. Hold off, kids. You don't have to read it yet.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. Stick around for next week's episode of Academia Unlocked, where we dive into our advanced analysis of Alice Walker's The Color Purple.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Share your comments through our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini episode or in a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle booktalkforbooktalk. And don't forget to join us by subscribing to the subtextsocietyjournal.substack.com to get more insights into the romantasy and romance world.
Bye. Struggling to find the right metabolic wellness support, even when you're doing everything right, has been one of the most frustrating things for me in my health journey.
I've tried other metabolic wellness support providers, and I often feel rejected rather than supported by the process.
That's because Brello is focused on long-term health, longevity, and performance, not quick fixes.
Brello is designed for people who want a more sustainable approach to their metabolic wellness support. Their support helps you focus on habits, education, and structure alongside provider oversight.
Getting my GLP-1 through Brello has been so easy. They make it so effortless, and they provide all the support I need through their app.
Their app is one of a kind in my book because it allows you to track progress, manage reminders, and stay on top of renewals. And if you're like me, managing the renewals is the hardest part.
Everything is managed online, making it easier to stay consistent over time, and medications are delivered to your door. They're so transparent with their pricing with one flat monthly cost. Go to BrelloHealth.com to see if you qualify and explore their GLP-1 plans, starting at $133 per month for your first 3 months, plus access to their app, community, and wellness classes. That's BRELLO health.com.
Any information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. All patients must consult with a healthcare provider prior to the prescription or dispensing of any medication, which will be done only pursuant to a valid prescription. Compounded drug products are not FDA approved, and the FDA does not evaluate their safety, effectiveness, or quality. Patients are encouraged to discuss the risks, benefits, and appropriateness of any medications, including compounded products, with their healthcare provider before use. When I moved in with my partner is when I realized how much effort she puts into her skincare. She spends so much time and money just on what she puts on her skin. But the one thing she doesn't invest in is our bedding.
Well, that's because you're now investing in it with Boll and Branch.
From their organic cotton sheets to their breathable pillows and comforters, Boll and Branch makes their bedding with ultra clean materials that are gentle on the skin and free from harsh chemicals.
Boll and Branch really feels like my first grown-up sheets. And you can really feel the difference with their signature sheet sets. Remember, these sheets are touching you for up to 8 hours every single night. You're going to want to have the best sheets possible. Have you noticed that the pockets of the fitted sheets are perfect for forming around the mattress?
This is the first set of sheets that I haven't had to help my partner put them on the bed because the pockets are too small. They are so easy to get on the bed.
These are honestly the first pair of sheets that I have that I don't wake up with my sheets halfway wrapped around me. They are durable, they are soft, and the longer you use them, the softer they become.
Upgrade your sleep with Boll and Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/BookTok with code BookTalk, BookTalk.
That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/BookTalk, and use code BookTalk to unlock 15% off. Exclusions apply. Amy, we were just in New York for BookCon, and did you notice that all of the New York girlies were wearing Quince?
You're so right. They were stylish, street appropriate, but also business casual.
It's amazing how I was spotting some of Quince's staple pieces on the street. I can always spot one of their Mongolian cashmeres from a mile away because it's always so soft and so nice. Quince really spends time on making sure they give you the best quality clothing they can with premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra soft denim.
Their styles make getting dressed simpler. They make me feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together with tops that start at just $30. You can't beat that for work.
Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup.
Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/BookTalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too.
That's QUINCE.com/BookTalk, BookTalk, for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/BookTalk.